Hi guys, welcome to Hoppers Motorsport Vlogs. Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening. This is part two of why cars are a big part of my life. You may have seen the first part. If you haven't, please check it out before you see this part. But yeah, welcome in guys. Just a bit of an introduction. Again, if you've not seen part one, as I say, check it out. But if you don't know who I am, I'm Hoppers or Andy. I'm based in the northwest of England. I am 34 years old, coming up to 35 this year. I'm a huge car fanatic, a huge petrol head, and a BTCC enthusiast. Obviously, proudly supporting my pal, Mr. Dan Rowbottom, throughout his journey of BTCC. But yes, we are doing part two. Part one concluded with talking about the British Touring Cars visit in 1999. But now, as we get into the current date, should we say, from liking the BTCC and attending the British Touring Cars, we're now going to be focusing on obviously what I have done since leaving school back in 2007. No, 2006, I beg your pardon, 2006 to the current date. So, yeah, obviously cars were a huge part of my life, growing obviously from still liking the BTCC in 1999. And obviously as the years went on, cars have still been a huge part of my life. So, obviously, back in the day, I used to obviously go and visit my late grandparents, who sadly passed away in 2016. These vlogs are for them, for for great memories. So if I get a bit teary-eyed in this part of the vlog, this second part, then please just bear with me. I just thought, I'll mention them. But yes, unfortunately, obviously when I was visiting my late grandparents, when I used to go and visit, when I was probably about 13, 14, or even 15 years old, I used to help my granddad by washing his car, making sure, his lights were working, potentially like headlights, rear lights, reverse lights, indicators, hazard lights, you name it. Just obviously, to prepare myself ready for studying my level 1 motor vehicle when I was leaving school. And I remember saying to myself, helping my granddad by washing his cars and making sure they were okay, they were in working order for him, kind of made me realise, how much cars were a big factor in my life, So, obviously, when I left school at the age of 16, I was thinking ultimately wanted to become a mechanic. I wanted to work with cars. I wanted to become, a mechanic in either Quitfit, ATS, Halfords, you name it. You name the local garages in the UK, or even just in a car dealer that has a garage next to it, or even just a little garage, So obviously I went to the local college at the time where I was living, and I remember doing my level 1 motor vehicle, thinking, okay, it's a bit harder than I thought it would be, because thinking about certain things, thinking about potentially, okay, having the knowledge to become a mechanic, you have to work really hard, and you have to be pretty on the ball. And I'm not going to be saying I couldn't become a mechanic. Technically I could be if I wanted to be. But I'm going to be honest here. I've got a mild form of autism. Okay, not many people know, but I've got a mild form of autism, which takes a bit of time to explain a few things to me. We'll get onto this later on in this vlog, where I talk about learning to drive. So I have to have things when I'm doing a task to be broken down into little bits. Otherwise, one big task can be a complete I'm going to say a bit of a fucking nightmare. Excuse the language. I did tell you part 2 may be a bit sweary. But if I have a task to do and it's not broken down into just bits, small little bits, what I need to do. So if it's not broken down for me to understand, it becomes a complete colossal. It can be a complete cluster, and I can get easily agitated and a bit confused, and probably a bit like, what the fuck is going on, So, yeah. Obviously, that ultimately is why I'm not a mechanic, because there is a lot of things in a day-to-day garage. Like, you may get a car that comes in and it needs a lot of work on it. It has a shit ton of jobs to be done. And me being me might not out of process what needs to be done in that order. So ultimately, doing level 1 motor vehicle, when I left school at 16, I realised, okay, I'm learning, I'm in a college environment. However, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I get told at the time of leaving the course at end of year, level 2 isn't for me. Level 2 will not be suitable. And I kind of, to a degree, felt really pissed off about it, because I was ready to, ultimately push on and wanted a career as a mechanic, because obviously liking cars, thought, I'd love to work for Ford, Honda, BMW, MG even, but it didn't happen, and I kind of felt like, ultimately I tried to get myself, tried to apply for the local health food store at the time where I was living, because I was living with my dad, and I put an application form in, didn't, ultimately, unfortunately, didn't get the job, didn't get where I wanted to be. I was like, ultimately, not disappointed, should we say, but I felt really like, what am I going to do? Because ultimately, I want to be involved in the motor industry, ultimately. Was my aim after leaving level 1, after being told level 2 is going to be really difficult and it isn't going to be for you. You're going to find it really tough, which is a kick in the teeth, and it is also a kick in the bollocks, So I obviously then thought, right, okay, I'm going to have to go back to college. I went back to college for a year. I was doing a preparing for work course at the time. And I remember going to a careers convention, and I saw a college prospectus for Myerscough College. Myerscough College is based just outside of Preston in Lancashire. And I saw they did first diploma in motorsport. I thought, wow, this would be great to get on this. I'm now, I think I was about 18. Yeah, I was about 8. Yeah, I was about 18. Maybe 18, 17 at the time. No, I was 18. Yeah, I was 18 at the time. Maybe 7, yeah. It was either 17 and a half and coming up to 18. And I remember saying to myself, I want, what are the chances of trying to apply for going to Myerscough to go and do a first diploma in motorsport? Shout out to Myerscough Motorsport. If you guys are watching this, you may remember me, you may not. I haven't changed since. The beard and the hair may have changed, but I've not changed my quirky ways. But, I was thinking, what are the chances to, ultimately live a dream of potentially, doing motorsport and going to go and study a first diploma in motorsport. So I remember going home and telling my dad and Tina is my stepmom. She's got a heart of gold. She really helped me become who I am, essentially. Um, helping me, you know, within getting into the likes of WRC, the World Rally Championship, excuse me, and helping me along the way with talking about how my life was essentially, and you know, potentially taking my interest at heart. And I remember saying to Tina and my dad, "Look, I'd love to do this," and they were like, "But the college is not locally. How we're gonna do this, and ultimately get you to live what would have been your dream." So we thought long and hard about it, and yes, with a few things I'm not going to mention because some of it may be personal. I don't really want to mention, but ultimately we worked towards getting me there, and we got a place at Myerscough in 2008, which I was at the time turning 19. Yeah, so by the time I started studying at Myerscough, I was 18. So obviously, I got offered a place living in the halls of residence because obviously with Myerscough to Cumbria, it is a bit of a distance every day. And obviously, I didn't learn to. At the time when I was 18, started learning to drive. People would say, "Why didn't you learn to drive when you were 17?" I'll go into that in a little while. But because I didn't have a car, excuse me, which most people at that age would probably have a car, So I got offered a place in the halls of residence. I lived away from home for a year, studying motorsport. And yeah, I learned about how to, engines, basically like I did in my level 1 motor vehicle, but on race cars. We even built a Nissan Micra rally car, me and my fellow students. Other behold, I was probably one of two older people on that college course. The rest in that year, I was studying. I'd just left school. So as you can imagine, turning up to a first diploma in motorsport. How old are you? I'm 18. I'm 19 in the second month, starting the course. And it's kind of like they've just left school and you're technically a young adult, or you're going into adulthood, and you think, that's a bit weird, isn't it? But nevertheless, I obviously, before going to Myerscough College, I learnt to drive. I got my provisional driving licence at the time, and I remember saying to myself, right, I want to learn to drive. But at the time, I was thinking, to learn to drive, I'm going to go and get myself assessed, because obviously with the autism. And this is where, I feel like I can share this with you guys. Excuse me. So I went to go and get assessed to learn to drive, but at the assessment, I decided I would, go and have a bit of a, not a test, but a bit of a practice, learning to drive, where I went on a private car park at the time, in an automatic. I think it was a Vauxhall Astra Estate that I actually, had my assessment in. And then we did a few manoeuvres there, and then I had to drive around the grounds where my assessment was. Obviously, I think I took my dad in the car at the time, and obviously the assessor. And then they said, yeah, there shouldn't be a problem with you learning to drive as long as you learn to drive in an automatic. So I did that, and then I got in touch with a local driving instructor at the time, and I was in I think it was a 1.6 Honda Civic, 5-door, very nice car. But it was an automatic. And at first I was like, getting into learning to drive and feeling, this is ultimately what I want. I want to own my own car. Okay, sadly, to this day forward, I don't own a car at the moment because they're so goddamn expensive, to run and keep and, essentially drive everywhere. So then I decided, okay, I learned to drive for a bit. Other behold, I wasn't test ready or anything. And when I obviously got the opportunity to go and study at Motorsport, I knocked it on the head. I then, I do kind of regret it, but at the time, I decided, learning to drive will come to a stop because I'm living away from home. I'm studying first diploma in motorsport. I won't really have time to learn to drive, even though technically I could have. But I decided against learning to drive, for the time being when I was studying at Motorsport. And other behold, when I was at Motorsport, I was learning huge life lessons as well along the way. We won't go into that. But, I got told at the start of the year of starting at Motorsport, I was only going to get a pass. And I kind of, to a degree, thought, yeah, okay, a pass. I got a pass in my level 1. Don't really want another pass because if I get another pass, I'm just, it's not really showing my true colours, should we say. And I somehow, as the year went on, my grades and my assignments started getting a bit better. I got a pass there and there, but then ultimately I started getting merit, distinction, probably a few merits, a couple of passes and one distinction. And I remember saying to myself, I'm pretty quite brainy at this if I've put my mind to it. And maybe because I studied really hard on the day of having to do the Nissan Micra test at Three Sisters Go-Kart Circuit. Some of you guys may know that. I think that's what I got. I think it was either in that or me engine exam that I got a distinction. I can't remember which one it was for the life of me. But then I think I got, because of having a couple of merits in my assignments and my exams, they said, well, I'd love to tell you, but you're going to be buzzing with this. You're probably going to be gleaming from ear to ear. You're not going to get a pass overall for leaving. You're now going to be getting a merit. And I thought, what the fuck? I'm getting a merit because of how the grades have gone from a few passes to a couple of merits to a distinction. And I was like, I've got a merit overall when I'm leaving college. What the fuck? What? At first I was getting a pass, but now I'm getting a merit. This is proper class, And excuse the language and all this, but I was really pretty like pissing myself, laughing, thinking, am I really getting a merit? But then when I got the certificate and I got the certificate at the end of the year, and it said merit, I was like, yes, come on. And I remember saying to myself at the time, I've achieved so much. So then when I went to go and graduate, I took my nan and granddad. And if I start getting teary-eyed, I get a bit emotional, please do bear with me in this bit. I remember taking my nan and granddad because I thought it'd be really a nice thing to do because my nan and my granddad knew how cars were in my life. And I somehow remember, going from their house in Staffordshire to Preston to go and do my graduation. I remember saying to myself, quite an honour to take my grandparents to see me get graduated, to get, obviously get the first diploma in motorsport over and done with. I remember taking them, and I think when we arrived there, I obviously saw Danny and Mark. If Danny and Mark from the Stumbling, they're obviously the Maestro tutors as well. But if you guys are watching this, I've not changed. But I remember introducing them to Danny and Mark, who were obviously part of the bouncers at the Stumble Inn, which is the student bar at the time at college, because I used to go in there on student nights. Obviously, you used to have a couple of pints, but not enough to get drunk, by the way, that's a disclaimer. But I remember introducing them to Mark and Danny, but Mark was like, can we get you anything? Do you need any help? And helping me nan and granddad was an absolute honour. I felt really, sorry guys, I really miss them. I really miss me nan and granddad. Sorry about that. But yeah. So, I remember introducing them to people like my tutor Pete and Penny that used to help me with my studies. And they were so grateful. They were so like, oh, it's really good that he's done very well, isn't it? And he seems to have really done very well in his year studying, and to hear me nan and granddad say, yeah, well, it just shows, doesn't it? Cars have been in his blood since he's been a child, and they could tell, So after I left Myerscough, I decided now's the time, because I was 19 at the time, obviously coming up to 20 years old, I was saying to myself, now's the time to get into work. I can't afford to go studying for another couple of years. So I decided to, ultimately go into the world of work, which sometimes probably was the right thing. That should have done it when I turned 18. I should have just said, right, don't go to college for another year. Go and get a job, But ultimately, I decided, at the time of when I left Myerscough, and my nan and granddad were so proud, and everyone was so proud when I achieved it, to do what I did. I'd said to myself, right, now's the time to go into work. And ultimately, one of my jobs, I wasn't in paid work for a bit. I decided, we'll try and get myself, with a bit of help, a bit of support, to get into the Halford store. And when I was studying going into the world of work course at the local college before I went to Myerscough, I did have a work experience at the Halford shop. So they kind of knew me already. So I then had voluntary work at Halford's, where I used to live. I'm not going to be shy about it, To do voluntary work there for the time being was okay. But at the time, there was an indoor go-karting track that had just been opened up in the town. And I thought, I love motor racing, I love go-karting. I do go-karting for fun, I don't do it competitively. So I thought, right, I'll go and see if I can volunteer at the local go-karting track. Other behold, I was working long days. I really wanted the quest to say I wanted to become paid, but that kind of went sour. I'm not going to go into details exactly what happened and why I didn't work there, or I did work there, but I don't want to, I don't really want to go into ultimately what happened, because it's personal. So then I obviously thought, right, okay, I left there, and then I ultimately moved in the town I'm living now. And then ultimately I'm not afraid to say this, I'm not ashamed to say this, but for my job, I'm a cleaner. I'm a part of the facilities team at a well-known kitchen warehouse. So, from wanting to be involved in cars, and, I'm now a cleaner. So, other behold, in 2015, or should I say 2014, so 10 years ago, Jen and I have been together 10 years as of next Wednesday. So if you're watching this and you're not watching it today, then next Wednesday, the 24th of April, Jen and I have been together 10 years. Jen's the heart and soul of Hopper's Motorsport Vlogs. She is the main reason why you guys get content like this. But in 2015, I decided to relearn to drive. And at first I was thinking, why do I really want to relearn to drive? I was thinking, I'm fucking stupid because I learned to drive in a manual in 2007, maybe 2008, and I jacked it in, but now I want to learn to drive in a manual. Other behold, I get told at the time, and this is no dig, and this isn't, a bollocking about my late nan, but my nan said to me, do you think you can manage? Because I'm not, this is another thing I'm not ashamed to admit, I've got mild cerebral palsy. And she was concerned because I walk on my toes quite a bit. Sometimes I'm not meant to, but I can't help it. It's part of who I am. And she was like, do you think you're out of manage because of your feet? And I don't think she ever told me that. I found out off my brother a few years ago. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to learn to drive. I want to get back behind the wheel. At first I was thinking, yeah, I'm fucking stupid because I'm not going to manage. Other behold, at the time of ringing round instructors, I was thinking, right, let's try manual. Let's try a manual gearbox car. And it stemmed quite well into, how things were going. So 2015, I started learning to drive again. I started thinking, to get my full UK driving licence, which is a requirement if you want to legally drive in the UK. Don't ever drive without a licence, it's against the law. Not that I have, but I'm just saying, But I decided to learn to drive, I decided to take the plunge, and I decided, manual cars are the way forward. So I started to learn to drive, and I remember saying to myself, in my head, and because obviously I got better at playing racing games by then, I decided that I'd have a go at racing manual gears on the Xbox because I'm learning to drive in a manual car. At first it was hard, but then we got there. But then obviously during my learning to drive process, 2016 came around. So I started learning to drive late 2015. I just started my cleaning job at where I work now, funny enough, and I started learning to drive, and I was thinking, I'm going to learn to drive, going to learn how to drive a manual. I was living on my own at the time as well. Jen and I weren't even living together. Jen's at work, so she can't, she can't say hello to you guys at the moment, but some of you guys know who Jen is. But I was learning to drive late 2015, and then 2016, January time, over the Christmas period of 2015, I found out my granddad was very bad with his dementia. I'd gone and visited him in the summer of 2015 because I'd just finished my level 2 of motor vehicle that year. Because I did my level 2 motor vehicle, and ultimately I decided to do level 2. I'm not going to go on to why I did it. I think I did it because I wanted to, get level 2 under my belt to prove a point to people. But my granddad's dementia got worse, and over the Christmas period of 2015, my nan had broken her foot. And because of that, and my granddad's dementia got very worse, she couldn't look after him. He was in a care home. And then start of January, sort of middle of January, he had a fall at the care home where he was. They took him into hospital because he had pneumonia, and obviously his dementia, and then sadly passed away on the 24th of January 2016. And it took it out of me quite a bit. And yeah, tears are starting a bit. But I got through it, and I was thinking, still learning to drive. And then 2 months later, 31st of March, me nan wasn't coping without my granddad. She got ill, she got a cold, she eventually got pneumonia, and then she sadly passed. And I was going through a bit of a really rotten, tough patch. I'm not going to lie. And my driving instructor at the time was like, do you still want to continue learning to drive? Because if your head's not right, then we can have a bit of a break. And I said, no, I'm going to carry on, because this is going to be for them. And ultimately, at the time of learning to drive, I was then, getting ready to do my theory test. And I failed. I think I was 2017, so fast forward a couple of months. I think it was 2017, I did my theory test, my first theory test, and I failed first time round. So then I went to go and book my second theory test. And I passed second time round. So I ended up going from the town I live an hour and a half away to go to the town where my dad lives, because I thought, right, because I failed on the Monday, I'm going to rebook. I had the money to do it. So I rebooked my theory test, and I went on the Saturday. I was due to be in work the Saturday evening. This is how determination I was. So I booked the earliest time I could do my theory test, jumped on the early bus to go and do my theory test, took Jen with me, and I decided, give me one sec, because she's just messaged me. So yeah, I took Jen with me to do my theory test. She couldn't come with me because obviously the mic thought. So yeah, I took Jen with me. I couldn't take her in the thing, in the theory test room, because they might think Jen's there to help me cheat and help me pass. So so Jen had to go around the shops for a bit. I then did my theory test, sat there, went out. After doing it, they told me I'd passed. They said, well, we don't normally let you do this, but you can celebrate. So I celebrated. I phoned Jen to go and meet her, to tell her. At first, I told her on the phone that I failed, just to wind her up. But then when I saw her in person with the pass certificate, she was like, "Oh, you passed me!" It was like, so I was quite over the moon with that. I told my instructor that I passed my theory, and then we started doing mock tests to get me ready for my driving test. This was 2017, by the way. Jen's already been to her first ever British touring car event in 2016 at Alton Park. So yeah, Jen's been to touring cars by then. And I remember doing my first ever driving test. Other behold, my first ever driving test, I think at the time, the morning leading up to my test, I think it was some horrendous weather conditions. I think it had a bit of a snow shower, but by the time my test came around, the snow had melted and disappeared basically. So on the morning of my test, I felt ready for it. Felt like I could do it, and this is where a few expletives are probably going to come out of my mouth again, just to let you know. So I remember doing my driving test, and I remember driving around, thinking, I feel like I'm doing okay. Other behold, we get to a village outside of where I live, and I get told to perform the emergency stop, which, if you like me and you think emergency stop, yeah, okay, it's fine, but it can startle you, because you're doing an emergency stop. Because if you're on the road and you have to brake suddenly because it's an emergency, because there's either a kid running in front of the road, or there's a car changing lanes and it's you're paying attention, but they're not, but they slow in front of you without smashing into the back of them. Then I did the emergency stop. I did it perfectly. The only thing that I forgot to do, and it is classed as a serious fault, unfortunately, is if you don't look around after an emergency stop. So if you don't go and check your blind spots, you fail. Lo and behold, I thought that might be just a minor fault. However, I get told at the end of my driving test, it was a serious fault. However, I did quite well. I think I got 5 minor faults that time, because you're allowed, I can't remember how many you're allowed, but I think I got about 5 minor faults, and obviously because I didn't look round after the emergency stop, it classed as a serious, so I failed. They didn't tell me until after my test. Over behold, I was absolutely fucking pissed off. I was pissed off that I failed my driving test, my first ever driving test. I got told if I had looked around after my emergency stop, I would have passed first time. And I was literally fucking livid. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we fucking go. So yeah, I was angry. I was angry about it, and I remember somehow just being like, oh, failed my driving test, we'll go again in the next couple of months. So over behold, next couple of months went by, and we did my driving test, and I remember saying to myself at the time, I hope I get a different examiner that failed me first time round, because that way I can relax and pretty much remember to look round if I have to do the emergency stop, etc. And I get told, obviously you get to ask, do you want to take your examiner in the car with you? My answer was always no. Glyn, if you're watching this, don't take it offensive why I didn't take you. I kind of thought it was a bit more added pressure. Over behold, I get told by Glyn it's the same examiner, because Glyn notices him before me. And then I get told the examiner has to take his examiner with him. This is where I find this a bit of a piss take and a bit of a shitter. So I do my driving test, but because I've got the examiner that failed me first time round, which I wasn't very happy with because he failed me, I then have the examiner's examiner in the back seat watching what the examiner is telling me to do on my driving test. He's not teaching me, he's telling me what to do on my driving test. And because the examiner's examiner is in the car, I was more nervous, and I had 4 serious faults. I can't remember what 3 of them were, but I remember one of them. One of them was going out of a junction, but there was a car next to me going right. So when they went right, I went left. I shouldn't have done that. I should have waited for that car to go, because if there was a car when that car had gone, coming up the road at speed, there would have been a crash. So I failed. Ultimately, he failed me again, to the point I was very pissed off and very distraught. And I was like, fuck's sake, I failed again. And I was thinking, do I really want to drive? Do I really want to learn? Well, practice doing my mock test. And at the point I was like, I'm going to go and think about it. I'm going away for a few days. I'm going to have time to think about it. Over behold, the next time I get behind the wheel for my driving test, my 3rd time lucky, they say 3's a lucky charm. And I remember waiting for my driving test for the examiner to come out. I was thinking, please, please, please don't be the guy that failed me 2nd time. Please don't. 1st and 2nd time, please, please, please don't be him. Over behold, I get someone different. I was like, yes. To the point where I felt fine. I think I wasn't nervous. I felt okay. There was a point where I went to the dual carriageway and I thought, shit, I'm gonna fail because I'm gonna get a serious fault because I'm going too slow up onto the dual carriageway. Other behold, it was fine. I had 5 minor faults and no serious faults. So I got told, congratulations, you've passed your test. I was like, yes. Other behold, I was like, this is for my nan and granddad. You know, this is for everyone that believed in me. And I was like, I fucking passed. This is great. I can't believe I've done it. So at first, when I got back, because Jen had come and visit me, and Jen's mum, bless her, you know, Jackie, my mother-in-law, you know, I was really happy that, you know, Jackie paid for it, because she's like, I'm going to pay for your test because I know how much it would mean to you, to get it, you know, ultimately get it done. I told Jen at first I failed, just to wind her up a bit. Jen's like, I can tell you smiling, I can tell you bullshitting me. And I then said to her, look, no, I've passed my test, I've passed my driving test, you know. And I felt a sort of a huge relief when I passed it. And at the time of passing my driving test, I realised, you know, I realised how important it was, you know. And I got my driving licence. Yes, I don't have a car to this day forward. But, you know, I realised I passed my test 2017, maybe 2018, I can't remember exactly what year I passed it. But I remember saying to myself, it was 2017 I passed it, because the year after, I was trying to plan to go to Knockhill Racing Circuit and hiring a car and all that, and my anxiety got too much for it. But then 2019 I started the vlogs, so, you know, things have slowly become a bit more, you know, car orientated. I did a vlog about British touring cars at Snetterton because I went for the weekend. Obviously the 2020 COVID pandemic, sadly couldn't go because it was behind closed doors. And then we started back up again 2021 going to Croft, and then took a year out of attending in 2022. 2022 was a bit of a weird year. Jen and I contracted mild symptoms of COVID during 2022, but, you know, we've got to overcome that. 2023, last year, we went to Snetterton and we went to Croft. So really, you know, we've had some good motorsport adventures. I've got to throw some clips from Snetterton together to put on here, onto YouTube, should I say, which this vlog's going on to, part 2. But this year, you know, I feel like, you know, we could be doing more with the vlogs. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. I do apologise for some sweary rants and a bit about it, but, you know, at the end of the day, we've come a long way. So yeah, if you really enjoyed this and you really want a part 3, you never know, I may do a part 3 about what's to come for Hoppers Motorsport Vlogs this year, because it is 5 years of Hoppers Motorsport Vlogs, believe it or not. It's also 25 years of me following BTTC, and also Jen and I have been together 10 years, and I turn 35 this year, so it is a big year of things. So if you have liked this, please do like and subscribe, and check out our social medias. I will see you guys in the next vlog. Don't know what it's going to be, but until then, take care. Ta-ra.